This is Athletes as Educators with former pro basketball player, championship winning coach, and author Angela R. Lewis. Angie Lewis interviews current and former athletes who are passionate about sharing the lessons they've learned and the experiences that have shaped their lives. A resource for parents, a guide for student athletes, a source for current and former athletes, keys to transition off the court. Welcome to the Athletes as Educators podcast with Angela R. Lewis.
Welcome to this episode of Athletes as Educators. I'm your host, Angie Lewis. On our podcast today, we have Richard Burgunder. He is an internationally acclaimed adventurer, entrepreneur, and professional extreme athlete. He is most known as a renowned competitor and founder of Kurjax and Extremus. He has been globally recognized as one of the winningest athletes in the XTERRA Trail Run Series history. Rich, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Angie. I greatly appreciate the time to be on your podcast, and I look forward to it.
So you sent me your bio and a bunch of links, and I'm just blown away by all that you've done. In terms of running, what has been your greatest, and I know it's going to be hard to pick one, but what's been one of your greatest accomplishments?
Well, first off, thank you very much. As far as my background goes and some of the things that I've experienced, like you said, I have been fortunate to experience quite a few different things throughout my athletic career. And it's taken a lot of interesting turns and twists over the years as far as different disciplines and areas of focus. But when it comes down to the accomplishments that I am most proud of, or ones that I've worked the hardest to obtain, I would have to say that it would revert back to the XTERRA Trail Run Global Tour and my success on that tour. The XTERRA produces the largest off-road triathlon and trail running circuit in the world. They have events throughout North America, South America, and nearly on every continent. And I actually got into this in 2008, and I greatly enjoyed it because I was actually transitioning out of road running at that time and ultramarathon, and I've always really enjoyed the more adventurous trail running and adventure running, mountain running, things along those lines. So they have this series. They have regional series in different parts of the country and even the world, and you can win titles per the regions. And basically how it works is there's several races for each regional series, and then there's a championship, and you amass points as you progress through the series. So I ended up, after 2008, I got into the XTERRA scene. I did compete in their national championships, world championships that year, but I didn't really compete in one of their full series. And in 2009, I was still living in New York City. I started to compete in the New England Regional Championship Series. And I ended up winning that. And I was actually overcoming a very serious injury, several broken ribs in the first race. And then I went due to training, not from the race. Okay. But I overcame the first race. I stuck with it. I was able to accumulate some decent points. And then did very well the next two races, and I ended up winning the series and became the regional champion. So that kind of got me hooked onto their entire regional championships and the entire series as a whole. So I continued with it for the next several years, up through 2014, and I went on a winning streak where I won 5 consecutive regional championships, being in New England was the initial one, followed by the Poconos, back-to-back, Ohio, and then Utah. And when I won the Utah series in 2013, that actually ended up being the most anybody's ever won total, and also the most that anybody has ever won in that were different. I mean, as of right now, I'm still the only athlete to ever win the series or the regional championships in 4 different regions, which took definitely, there's a lot of work making that happen, a lot of sacrifices, travel, and even some of them were very close. I mean, they came down literally to the last race, and they were neck to neck throughout the entire series, and even had to come back to one of them. So it was very exciting. It was something I worked very hard to continue. I wanted to try to lock that down and hold that record and maintain it. So that was definitely probably one of my greatest accomplishments, just due to the sacrifices that it took to continue that. And then the other one too, I mean, I think some of the ultra running I used to do with USA Track and Field, for example, in the medaling twice back to back in 2008 and 2009 at the USA Trail Marathon National Championships in North Dakota, followed by the 2009 50-mile road national championships right outside of State College, Pennsylvania, where I took 6th and 9th in those 2 years and medaled for top 10 at the U.S. National Championships. That was something I'm pretty proud of myself, or pretty proud of with as well, and definitely worked hard for that. And then lastly, I'd say the other thing would be making it to the Empire State Building run-up 5 consecutive years as an elite invited athlete. It was just an incredible experience, and that event has grown so much and really has become a very, very high-profile race, especially for vertical running and extreme athletes. And it's just, to have that opportunity to compete in such a high-profile event among such a small number of people that were invited those years, which was only a couple hundred globally. It was something I'm definitely very proud of, and something that took a lot of work to obtain, just for the fact that they reviewed your applications, they really looked at your background, and they liked people that had a diverse and more unique background, especially when it came to like more extreme type of racing environment. So it was definitely something I'm very proud of.
Rich, what is it that has drawn you to the extreme races? I mean, you've climbed 6 of the top 10 highest peaks in the U.S., Mount Fuji, I mean, several other peaks throughout the world. What draws you to this?
Well, that's a great question. Definitely get asked that quite often. And some people, depending on who you're speaking with, I mean, some people think it's crazy. Some people think it's very interesting. Some people can definitely relate to it. But as far as these type of events, I've just always had a passion for, I guess, adventure and the unknown, and just really pushing myself to the limits. I mean, whether it comes with sports or whether it comes in other personal or professional endeavors, I just always try to push to the maximum point. I have my motive, there are no limits, and I apply that to everything that I've always done. When it comes to these type of environments, as I said, I greatly enjoy the adventure aspect of them. I enjoy the sense of danger with some of them, and some in the sense of that there's just, you don't know, they're very unpredictable, and you never know what's going to happen, especially when you're mountaineering and some of these more extreme races too. They're very unpredictable. They're not like your typical road race or something along those lines where you pretty much have a good idea of what to expect. But when you start doing these adventure races or extreme trail races or mountain events, a lot of different things can happen during the course of the race that have nothing to do with the competition side. And it's just, as always, and the other thing too that I've always liked about these type of things is I love to travel. I love to see new areas. I love, and it's enabled me to meet a lot of very interesting people and from all over the world, and also to see some incredible areas that have just been absolutely beautiful and striking and just extremely unique. So that's been definitely a factor as well.
After looking at some of the places that you've run, it seems like some just gorgeous places in the world, from Italy to Nairobi. I mean, you've been all over. Is there one place that you just loved most? Yes,
that's another great question. Fortunately, and it's one thing, I mean, over the years, I have had some incredible opportunities to travel with some of the U.S. teams and different programs that I sponsor as partners, and I was very fortunate because many of these trips I was able to enjoy with very minimal sacrifice, as far as I didn't have to spend much money, if even any, to travel to some of these places, and was able to really see a lot just by being involved in some of these organizations or some of these events, which was great, because some of these places are considered definitely more exotic. But as far as some of the places that were the most memorable for me and truly amazing and exhilarating experiences, my trip to Nairobi for the greatest race on earth, 2007 and 8, which was started in October and it went through the early spring or late winter. But the first race of the series was in Nairobi, and Nairobi, as a lot of people know or are aware of, is Kenya, and just in general, is a mega running country, especially when it comes to marathons. I mean, the best of the best, and it's a big part of the culture. And that was an extremely exciting aspect of it alone. But then actually my experience in Nairobi and just being there getting immersed within the city, the metro area, and as much as I could in a short time period in that part of Kenya was incredible. Between the people, the Kenyans that I met, and seeing all the culture there, and the great food, and all the art and the different tribal things that I've come across and was introduced to while there. It was a very unique experience. And the other thing too that was very memorable about it was I was there just less than a week before the Civil War broke out in the fall of 2007. So it was a very unique experience just being there, and things were starting to really escalate and build up. So there was a very memorable experience. The other one would be Japan. My experience in Japan in 2010 was incredible, and for a lot of the same reasons. I mean, it was a much more exotic type of location, and I spent a little bit of time in Tokyo, but the Tokyo aspect of it was not really the memorable part. Being in the ancient mountains where the samurai were, where the race was held, was just incredible. It was just such a mystic and environment, and very powerful, and it was a very spiritual type of situation, and you can just kind of feel it there, and the people too. I mean, you're in like a much more native area, an ancient area, and the culture was much different than say Tokyo, and it was very unique. And the same thing when the day after the race, when I had the experience on Mount Fuji, was just the same thing. I mean, I met so many incredible people in such a short time period, and had so many experiences in such a short time period where it was just absolutely fascinating. It was an incredible experience. Both of them were.
One thing that I love about sports that you mentioned in both of those experiences is how sports has a way of bringing people together from different cultures, and sports becomes that like level playing field. Obviously, it's a Olympic year, so we'll see a lot of that happening.
Yes, I think you're exactly right. Sports can definitely unify. There's no question about that. They have for centuries, and especially in the last 100 years. And I think, this is a crucial year going into Rio. And unfortunately with Rio right now, there's so many other complications. But I think definitely more than ever, there needs to be a lot of unity. And I think sports can definitely maybe build a bridge or can close that gap to some extent. But even when I was in Kenya, for example, there were over 35 international teams competing in the greatest race on earth, and many of these international teams came from countries that definitely did not see eye to eye with each other. And even within Kenya, there were the two opposing tribes that would end up clashing in an extremely serious civil war during that political year just a week later. But during the time of that race, in the race weekend and all the festivities that intertwined with that event, it was like a completely different environment. And people mingled, people worked together. It was interacted together. It was a very unifying type of event. And definitely within the athlete community, it definitely built a lot of partnerships and friendships, and created a door or an opportunity for unification.
When people compete at that high level, there's this mutual respect for what you have to get through just to get there and to make it to that space. So it makes sense, your experience with Kenya, how although there are tribes who are in conflict, how sports could be that space where they could have some level of connection because of the shared experience of sport.
Yes, exactly. The shared experience is very important. And what happened in Kenya, when I was there, things were starting to escalate very, very quickly. It was a very volatile situation. It was very dangerous. There was a lot of crime was increasing, and the tension was definitely increasing. And I mean, as a lot of people are aware of what happened in late October or going into early November of 2007 in Kenya, I mean, the country, especially Nairobi, just went into complete chaos. I mean, it turned into a war zone within hours, and it was what people were doing to each other were very similar to what's happening right now in parts of the Middle East. And it was a completely different situation or scenario than how things were going during the race weekend. And if the race continued, maybe things would have been different. But it's remarkable though how the entire city, or a large portion of the city in the area, the citizens all came together for the race. I mean, the crowds, for example, during the race were incredible. They were like New York City equivalent to an extent. Because, I mean, the entire course, there were people lined up behind each other, rooting for everybody and cheering and providing moral support and everything along those lines. So it was a very interesting experience, just with the unification that event provided.
So, Rich, when you were in high school, did you ever dream that this is what you'd be doing? Like one day you'd be in Kenya or you'd be climbing mountains? Was this your plan when you were 15?
Honestly, to the capacity that I have, absolutely not. When I grew up, I mean, it's the experiences that I've had. I look back and sometimes, and I've seen this with many of athletes or people that end up getting things really take off. I mean, sometimes you just get so caught up in things that you kind of forget your past, or you forget how things started, or the hurdles, or the long shot odds, and you become accustomed to things. And not that you're ungrateful or anything along those lines, but just kind of, you don't realize where you are. And I mean, when you get to that higher level and some of the experiences that come with it. And when I was growing up, I mean, I was very active. I lived a very active life growing up. I mean, I was very big into the outdoors and sports in general, just being active and doing all kinds of things. So I've always loved, with the mountaineering stuff, I mean, I've always loved being in the mountains and doing things like that, and also visiting different places. But did I ever envision myself 20 years down the road having some of the opportunities that I've had with mountaineering? Absolutely not. Or that I'd be on Fuji like I was, or some of these other high peaks. And when it comes to the actual athletic standpoint with competition, I mean, when I was growing up, I tried several different sports, from baseball, t-ball, soccer, etc. And I mean, I was never a standout. I was always getting appraised by the coaches for hustling and always getting awards for effort, things like that. But I was never one of your star players, like some were. And basically what happened was, I played some soccer in middle school, and then I didn't do anything for several years. In my freshman year of high school, during the spring, we had to do a 3-mile run for physical conditioning part of gym class. And I ended up doing extremely well, and I ended up having the fastest time for that 3 miles in a class of almost 500 people. Wow. So my gym teacher at the time, Mr. Deemer, just was extremely impressed, I guess you could say, and he asked me if I was on the track team or the cross-country team, and I said no, and he encouraged me and motivated me to definitely look into that over the summer and sign up, which I did. And I was coming through kind of a dark spell in my life after my freshman year, and even 8th grade as well. It was kind of very bad, going through some tough times, and sports kind of got me back on track. And when I started to, it was kind of like a driving force to do well with everything in my life. And from that point forward, I mean, my academics were very good, and my relationships became much better, and other things I was involved in all started to improve dramatically. So it was definitely a turning point as well.
Having sports and a team and supportive coaches makes a huge difference in an adolescent's life. We know that now a lot of kids are playing earlier and are really serious earlier. When did you decide that this is something that I just want to keep running. You started after your freshman year, but why did you keep going?
Yeah. Well, during high school, it was more for fun, and it was something to do, and it was enhancing other parts of my life and improving it. So it was kind of like a goal. I was very goal driven, so I set goals for myself, and I was starting to do very well, so I continued with it. But another thing about in high school, I had a lot of my good friends were on the teams that I was on, and we were a very close bonded group of people. I mean, we were very close knit. We did a lot of things together, and we excelled. I mean, our cross-country team, for example, had one of the highest GPAs my senior year. I mean, we out of all the sports teams, and we had an amazing group of people. And so in high school, I mean, I was very competitive, and I did get more and more competitive. But I ended up putting pressure on myself at times, and sometimes I would have like anxiety, and I would totally falter in some really big races because I put too much pressure on myself. But I wanted to continue. I love the competition aspect of it. I love the entire scene and the friendships made, and just I still thought it was a driving force for me to do better in other aspects of my life. So I continued in early college at the initial university I started at, which was a smaller state school before I transferred to Penn State University Park. And I had a great first season as a freshman and did much better than my coach even assumed I would. But I just I started to feel burned out, and I think that the greatest reason why is because it was no longer really fun. It was just, there was so much pressure just to do well, and and a lot of that reason was it was my fault because I put so much pressure on myself to constantly achieve at a very high end or a very high capacity in every competition, even in practices. So I burned out. Going into the spring of my freshman year, I quit the track team before the first meet, and I took some time off, and then I decided to do something crazy and run my first ultra marathon in the spring of 2000, and it was a 50K, and I ended up doing it just on a whim for fun, and I ended up running an extremely good race, and still have a record for the fastest 20-year-old time for a 50K. By a 20-year-old, and it was just it kind of like it brought me back into the scene, and it kind of revamped me and just gave me another outlet as far as another perspective, because I was always so used to be on the team and having everything so structured and more serious. But when I started to competing on this level in these other races and picking and choosing what I wanted to do and kind of working my way up from there, it's opened up different doors, and it alleviated some of the pressure too. But I think with a lot of kids today, as far as starting earlier on, I started later than most people are today, especially ones that are looking to get serious. But I think, personally, I think it's just when you put so much pressure on yourself as a kid, like so early today, the chances are so great that you're going to burn out, especially by the end of high school. I just don't even see how many people can start when they're under 10 years old in such a serious fashion, and then or serious level, and be just ultra competitive all the way through school. And by the time they get to college, and I've seen this with other friends and people I've known over the years, some people that have had great scholarship offers to top universities with top programs, and they just by the time they started college, they were done. They either with injury or just complete burnout, and they wanted nothing to do with the sport. So I think it's great to just make sure you always keep it fun and keep it more low level, and just, I mean, you can be competitive, you can train hard, but I think it's great to have more of a diversity within your life as far as other outlets. Just have that as your sole outlet and do other things, have other interests, and kind of keep things just fresh all the time.
You're absolutely right, Rich. You know, there's so many kids that burn out, and there are a lot of them who are solely only focused on athletics that it starts to feel like a job when they're 10 or 12 years old, and that's not healthy at all.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you ran 50K, the fastest of any 20-year-old ever. Can you give us some context of how fast you ran a 50K, and what is 50K in miles?
Well, it was a road race. It was in March of 2000. It was held in Pittsburgh, and it was sponsored by GMC, and it was a U.S. 100K national championships, and they also had a 100-mile national championship, either 100K or 100-mile, and they also had a 50K subsidiary race. And I had no intention of doing the 100K or the 100-mile, and the 100K was actually it was a 100K national championship. So 62 miles for the main event, and then the subsidiary event 50K was 31.2 miles.
Okay.
So 5 miles longer than your standard marathon. And this was kind of like when I really started to get hooked on like the extreme challenges, and this is kind of like, I guess, the pivotal point in my athletic career, because at this time point I kind of transitioned from being on the team aspect all the time to going into these more individualized events. And this race was, I quit the track team in, I think it was February of 2010, or excuse me, 2000, that's when this race was. And I took some time off, but a couple weeks later, I continued training. I had a good base, and I did a couple of longer runs. And nothing too crazy that most ultra runners do, but I went out for a couple of like 18 to low 20-mile runs, and which was much farther than we were usually training in college at that time period. And I enjoyed it. At that time, I just felt like it was very it was relaxing, and it was just like, it was a great outlet. So I saw the race come up, and I thought, I might try this. And I started to do the race. And the race, this is my first ultra. I had no idea what to expect. And I went out pretty hard. And I ran with the leaders of this race for the first, it was a 5-lap course, or excuse me, it was a 5-mile course, like a loop. And so it was the same loop every time around this lake at this big park. And it just, my first 4 splits were within like 30 seconds of each other, and there were some coaches there from USA Track and Field out of Indianapolis at the time. And I guess we're talking to my parents and just saying that they couldn't believe how well I was running, and like, especially at that age. And I really thought nothing of it at that time period. And I continued, and at mile 27, I came through my marathon split in 2:56. At mile 27, or about a mile after the marathon point, due to the pressure of the race and just the exertion and not being used to that, especially training-wise, I ended up fracturing my foot and also tearing some tendon. And my ankle swelled up like a softball. It was really red. And the next several miles, I more than had to walk, and my pace drastically fell down. But I was able to hobble into the finish at 31.2, and still had a great time, which was, I think my time was 3:43. And I fell off pace a lot because I was on pace for like a 3:25. But because of that injury, it really shut me down. But up until this point, yes, for a 20-year-old, it's still the fastest 50K time on the road. And I never thought, the record's kept by Lehigh University, and it was a crazy experience. And when I finished that race, I just like started crying. I was like, I can't believe I just did this.
That is amazing. That is so amazing. And you kept going even though you fractured your foot. That's pretty fascinating.
Yes.
That's really fascinating. Well,
yeah, I paid dearly for that. I was on crutches for a while after that race, for like a month. So it was even crazier because I wanted to run another marathon after that. I was so excited. I wanted to do the Pittsburgh Marathon that year, which was also the Olympic marathon trials. And I wasn't in contention for the marathon trials, but I had a really big goal, and I set it to like, I wanted to do like a 2:35 or a sub 2:40 marathon was my goal, based on the success of that race. But I started training again, and my foot was just in such bad shape that I had to scratch from that race, and I was on crutches off and on basically the remainder of that spring. So it was definitely worth it though. That was, like I said, it was a pivotal point in my athletic career, and it was something that just I'll never forget.
One of the things that, with all the racing that you do and all the running, how do you take care of your body considering the extreme levels that you race?
Well, that's a really good question. As far as general maintenance of my body and how I take care of it, surprisingly to a lot of people, my overall training time is much lower than what a lot expect. And I am a firm believer of high-intensity training as opposed to extremely long workouts or multiple workouts. When I train, I go all out, and that has always been, for the most part, since I've really went into more of the elite scene, how I've trained. I've been a firm believer and supporter of high-intensity training or HIIT. And my training for a lot of these races and events that I've done over the years, especially throughout the ultra running or the marathon, not really the marathoning, but the ultra running, the adventure racing, the trail and mountain scene, even the stair climbing or the vertical running scene, I've mainly focused on very intense training, maybe 3 to 4 days on average a week, sometimes 5 to 6 days. But during those HIIT days, I would just mix up my workouts to different ways. I would usually do some strength training at the gym or other methods, some cross training, and then the endurance training, which I would mix in with a lot of interval workouts or tempo workouts, where I would interchange the pace during a run, for example. Start off slower, pick it up more and more and more, and just continue to pick it up until the very end. Or do things along those lines. Hill workouts, very aggressive hill workouts, very aggressive sprinting workouts, pick-up workouts. And a lot of cross-training too. I would do different cross-training when I could, like snowshoeing, mountaineering, hiking, running stairs, even before I was starting to run stairs as far as racing. So I think it's always good. I mean, a lot of athletes put a lot of time into training, and sometimes much more than it's even needed. And everybody's different, so as you know, what works for one person might not work for somebody else. But I think you can do very, very well by placing emphasis on certain parts of your training and just really going into it as a very aggressive manner.
So your advice for athletes who are interested in getting into racing is to switch it up and figure out what works best for them?
Absolutely. That's a great point. And I think as far as high-intensity training, I don't recommend jumping into that to any athlete. High-intensity training is something more geared to specialty type of training, and you definitely have to become conditioned first before you can start that. Yeah. But it's an option for those people that can withstand it, especially if your body can withstand it. But it's typically not until the point where the athlete is in very good shape and has a couple of years under their belt. But for athletes looking to get into sports, especially a competition or a highly competitive level, just listen to your body and try different things. I mean, it doesn't hurt. There's so many different ways to train anymore and so many different methods. Explore them all. See what works for you. See what avenue you recover the quickest from, which one takes longer to recover. And that's the key, too. You want to pay attention to your recovery time, because that'll be a great indicator of your overall fitness and whether you're overexerting yourself or not.
That's a really great point. Well, Richard, I just want to thank you again for joining me today. If people want to learn more about you, want to learn more about your races, how can they reach you?
Well, first, thank you very much, Angie. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure. And as far as reaching out to me, I do have a new personal website that will be launching shortly. It is richardpburgunder.com, and I also have a YouTube channel which I can be contacted at.
Okay, perfect. Richard, thank you again. I'm just blown away. Please keep me posted on your upcoming races and all that you have going on, because it's truly inspiring to hear about all that you've done and how there are no limits.
Thank you very much, Angie. I appreciate it, and you're welcome. It was a pleasure.
This is Athletes as Educators.
Thank you for listening to the Athletes as Educators podcast. Connect with me through the Athletes as Educators Facebook page or at Athletes Educate on Instagram. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode, and go over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. For more resources and information about today's podcast, you can check us out at AngelaRLewis.com.